What's up, everybody? So today I want to talk about mouthpieces. But the most important question that a lot of people ask is how come I sound the same on all these different mouthpieces? All right, let's get to it. They do not sound the same. There are a few reasons why you sound the same on every mouthpiece, but I'm going to start with the number one reason. The number one reason why you sound the same on every mouthpiece is quite simply because you're not trying to change your sound when you switch mouthpieces. That's really it. That's simple. You go from one auto link to the next auto link. You're not trying to change your sound when you do that. When you go from one mouthpiece to a different mouthpiece, you're generally trying to get the mouthpiece to help you do stuff that you're already trying to do with your sound that you already have. Like, for instance, you'll buy a mouthpiece because you think it'll help you with Altissimo. You buy a mouthpiece so you can articulate better. You buy a different mouthpiece because this one plays more in tune, vice versa. Or most commonly, you buy a mouthpiece to alter the tip opening, or this mouthpiece is going to fit better with these reeds, but you're not making a conscious effort to actually change your sound. This is the absolute number one reason. In fact, it's kind of the only reason, even in reference to the other stuff I'm going to tell you. It's the only reason why you sound the same on everything. You're not trying to sound different. Okay, so what is your sound? Now, I recently put together my saxophone sound development book. I have this here as a digital purchase. I'll post the links down at the bottom, but right on the cover, I list what the components of your sound actually are: tone, subtone, articulation, vibrato, dynamics. These are the things that actually allow us to identify who's playing the saxophone. Tone is only one small component. There's a lot of guys who have a similar type of sound, but we know it's somebody else by the way they articulate, by the way they use dynamics, vibrato. There's a lot of other things that you do when you are actually trying to change your sound. So who out there is actually trying to change their sound? Well, me, because I went to college, and I studied classical and jazz. So I wasn't going to use my auto link to play classical saxophone music. I'd have been kicked out immediately. What did I do? I got a different mouthpiece. I used my Selmer C-Star mouthpiece. And I didn't just put it on and then try to play all the same stuff. No, I had to make a conscious effort to play things differently. What did I play differently? I changed my tone to play classical music. I minimized the subtone. I had a different type of articulation. My vibrato was different. And because the overall dynamics of the classical saxophone mouthpiece are much lower, I had to play with a different range of dynamics. So these are the reasons why we change our mouthpiece. A lot of people go from jazz, maybe something more traditional, jazz trio type of stuff, and they want like a darker sound, and then they go into a Tower of Power style big band, and now they want something much edgier and much brighter, but you're not changing your sound. You're really doing a lot of the same stuff. You just want to change components of your sound. I want something a little edgier. So a big thing that a lot of people will do is when you go from playing something more traditional jazz into smooth jazz, now you start to hear a much bigger change in someone's sound when they switch equipment. Why? because you're actually trying to change your sound. You're going to use vibrato differently. You're going to use dynamics differently from traditional jazz into smooth jazz, or from classical into smooth jazz, or whatever. Maybe you want to get into polka or whatever kind of style you want to do, hip hop, funk. You want to apply a different type of approach to playing the music to change your sound. And a mouthpiece is going to give you greater access to being able to change your sound to what you want it to. Now, I want to play a clip. This is the old Eugene Russo JDX5. This is before Jody Espina acquired Eugene Russo mouthpieces. And at the very beginning of this mouthpiece, you hear a very definitive subtone attack. You hear a type of I could hear this when I was playing this mouthpiece. Now, I had some issues with the mouthpiece. I had to adjust it. I had to change my reeds. I usually using Van Doren Java reeds. This time I switched to Van Doren Classical. I think I was using V12 or V21s. And I get this really nice type of subtone articulation. Now, I've listened to a lot of players that play with a subtone, so I know what to access by using that mouthpiece, because it's giving me access to that subtone. One other thing that I want to address as to why you sound the same on every mouthpiece has to do with something very controversial, but I can promise you every single one of your favorite players, they have all done this, but unfortunately, none of them have actually recommended that you do this. This is the biggest kept secret in jazz saxophone, but you need to listen to saxophone players whose sound you do not like. Now, I am not saying that you need to listen to bad saxophone players, but you need to listen to saxophone players that you don't like. One of the things that I've always been told, I've told this to other people, and I've officially stopped saying it. People say, who you like. You need to listen to who you like. No, you don't. You need to listen to who you like, and you need to listen to who you hate. Because if you only listen to who you like, I can promise you, you like a whole lot of the same stuff. So when you go to switch mouthpieces, you're going to sound the same because you don't have access to those other saxophone players whose sound you didn't like. Why would you want to sound like them anyway if you don't like them? Let's delve into that. All right, let me tell you this story real quick. So I get into college and I don't quite realize that there is no jazz saxophone program that's there. So I am bombarded with predominantly classical saxophone. I didn't even know there was such a thing as classical saxophone. I thought it was just classical music. I didn't know there was this humongous subset called classical saxophone and how well developed that sound was. Obviously, going to school as a jazz major, never hearing this before, hearing how different it is from what I want and what I like, I don't like it. I legit did not like it. But there was one thing, one very important thing, one hugely important factor that kept entering my brain. As a freshman, going to college and being in this music school full of classical saxophonists, I realized that all these saxophone players are better saxophone players than myself. So who am I to say I don't like this when these guys can all outplay me? Scales and all that stuff. I mean, I'm playing on my student model Con that I got in 5th grade, and the low register's terrible, and the palm keys are like, I thought those were like auxiliary keys. I didn't know we had to use all that. So you know what I did? I listened to everything. I listened to my teacher. I listened to every student, learning all these works, and I just What is that approach to playing the saxophone? I never heard anything before like that. You know why I didn't like it? Because it did not meet my expectations. I have a very similar story about Stan Getz, who's probably my number one favorite ballad saxophone player. I've been listening to Stan Getz play one note samba for years and didn't realize it. And I bought the Stan Getz album. I got the cassette of, I think it's Live in Stockholm. It's got Green Dolphin Street on it. And I didn't like it. I didn't realize that was the same dude. I didn't like it. The reason why I didn't like it, because I was into like Michael Brecker and Wilton Felder. I was into more of that edgy sound. So when I got this, it did not meet my expectations. So I judged it, misjudged it. I didn't give myself an opportunity to even like it, even though I listened to that thing for like 2 weeks straight nonstop. It wasn't until I went back and actually heard One Note Samba, and I was like, that's the same dude. Because I could hear it now because I'd listened to so much Stan Getz. Then when I went back and listened to that album, I was like, I get it now. Same thing happened with classical saxophone. Now, I have a different kind of approach. I'm very well trained in classical saxophone. As far as my personal sound, that's definitely a part of it. It's in there, and I poke that thing out every now and then. And it's fun, and I love a lot of classical saxophone. I still have my reservations about classical tenor. I think it's very underdeveloped. But at any rate, when our expectations aren't met, not just in music, but pretty much in life, it can really throw us a curveball, and we immediately don't put ourselves in a position to really accept things for what they are instead of what we think they should be. Don't sell yourself short on the joy that you can get out of not just playing saxophones, but all the mouthpieces that you have. You haven't really explored how to play these mouthpieces. I can't take my classical saxophone mouthpiece and play it like it's a jazz mouthpiece. I'm going to sound the same on everything if I do that. I don't want to play smooth jazz the same way I'm going to play Coltrane. So we get equipment that gives us greater access to that, and that changes our expectations. So my advice to you is listen to a lot of stuff that you don't like, because over time you start to hear it all in a much, much more fulfilling perspective. You start to get a much better idea of how all the pieces fit into the whole. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't like when I was younger that I like now and even love. So you got to go through that process, and you have to give yourself access to being able to do that. I do have my Altissimo books for alto and tenor saxophone, along with my All Things Diminished book available for all musical instruments. And obviously I do have my saxophone sound development book that is available as a digital purchase through PayHip. You can check that out in the link below. Oh, and if you like this shirt, I also have an affiliate link with Amazon, so you can pick up some sweet merch like this. I have my merch store that's available through Teespring, Spring now. And also I do have an affiliate link with Woodwind Brasswind if you want to pick up some mouthpieces. If you like this kind of content, you want to support the channel, you can buy me a piece of cake. It's like a Kickstarter, Patreon type of program. You make a small donation, and that helps the channel grow immensely. All right, that's all I got for you. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.